All right, so here we go. Welcome to another episode of 40 and Fit. We are here where we take a deep dive into the male mind on the verge of a midlife crisis. As John likes to say, we are without our fearless bus driver tonight, John. I don't know where he is because he didn't tell us. So your boy Dave is manning the steering wheel tonight. And to my opposite, we have
Mike Oban.
And then next to Mike, we have our usual cameraman.
Yeah.
Say something.
Hello.
This is Cliff, guys, since he seems to have forgotten his name since he's on the microphone.
Yeah.
And our guest...
He's a man of few words, but they're all heavy.
And our guest tonight is a very good friend of mine, a life coach. Her name is Lauren Pla. Welcome.
Thank you.
So these guys know a little bit about you because of the wonderful post I put up, but why don't you give us a little background on yourself and what kind of intrigued you to say yes to my invite to come on here?
So let's see, a little bit. How to put myself into a box. I'm going to paint myself into a box.
With lots of yoga.
With lots of yoga. So I am a life coach, which what I like to say is that I currently help humans human. I help humans with humaning because it's really hard. And I kind of believe in this big cosmic joke of we're sent here as humans to figure out how to ascend being human. And so it takes a while for different people to do that. And I'm like really fascinated by that. So I really am fascinated with the mind and behavioral therapy and just getting inside like why people do the things they do and why we psych ourselves out so much really. And I'm here because I did the whole like regular normal life thing that we're all supposed to do. Marriage, kids, job, whatever. And I had these signs that we can get into later, but just to kind of give you the abridged version, like I just was getting these signs that I was not meant to be where I was. And, I've had a couple of... Was it the
pink slip that said you were fired from your last job?
It was not that one, no. Right? It was not being, brought into the owner's office and being in trouble. No, I've had a couple of times in my life where I've just taken these kind of crazy leaps of faith. I mean, I had no other job and I made really, really good money and I could not ignore any longer that it was not right. And I just kind of left. And then I was like, I'm going to be a life coach. So I do those things sometimes. And then you and I just always have like amazing conversations. Like, we can get into how we met and how I realized you weren't like a total a-hole.
Right.
And that you had some depth. And we have good conversations. And I heard one of the podcasts and was really, really like impressed.
She heard the one with Will and Andrew. Because she's friends with Andrew as well.
Yes.
Okay. Well, those two guys. It's easy to be impressed by that.
It was really a good conversation. And honestly, the part of it that I was texting Dave about was John's part, where he actually got a little, maybe he gets vulnerable, and that was the first one that I heard, but the idea of like, fucking yes, like this needs to be heard. Like I want in on this. Like this is, and I have like I don't know what the right word is, but I have a son, so I am interested in a world that is, always fighting different battles, and there's like the whole like feminism and women and this and that, and I get all of that. I have some like magnetism toward male emotions and like the fact that, this toxic masculinity, like I don't know how I feel about that term.
We can get into that. We talked about that a couple weeks ago, I think.
Did we?
I think so, yeah.
So I just was like, hey, Dave, this was awesome.
Yeah, John's tagline is always interesting. And when he asked me to do this, I thought it was just something he was interested in presenting because he thought it was a good idea and there'd be an audience. And then quickly I realized that as we went through episode by episode, the first one was just the three of us, Mike, myself, and John. And as we got more guests on, I think this was almost therapeutic for John to just kind of say, I'm not really sure where the last 20 years of my life went. and I'm not even sure if I really dig what I'm doing, but I want to know if anybody else feels the same way. And I've known him long enough that I wasn't really surprised to hear him open up in that way around me, because we've always kind of had that type of relationship. And usually what he ends up asking everybody who comes in here, male or the other female that was on, was, do you think that, is the midlife crisis real for even women? Because everyone thinks it's the man thing. Like all of a sudden, oh, my wife is this, my kids are this. Okay, where's my Ferrari? Where's my Corvette? Whatever. And they just kind of go through the motions until, I don't know, something happens. Mm-hmm. Do you think did you ever feel that?
I have thoughts on a midlife crisis. I actually have a theory. So your brain is not even done developing until you're 25 years old. So in my opinion, we don't even start living until you're 25.
Yeah, Cliff, you're just getting ready. You're just getting started.
So you need to literally.
Is there training wheels on that seat?
You're like a what do they call it? Like a tadpole. But no, I can't. If you think about it, the reason that 18 is adulthood is because, for the military, they wanted to be able to get you in and have you fight. And there was a reason for that at that time. So you can drive a car and you're legal and you're considered an adult before you can even have a drink. And you can have a drink before your brain is ever done. Like, all of the research is like, if you can hold off on drinking and trying drugs until after you're 25, you have a better chance of not fucking your whole life up. And these are like the things that they're talking about, and I'm like,
astounding theory, really.
Right? And so I think that we're like, because if you look at society, right, it's like, okay, you go to high school, you're babies. And you're being told, figure out what you want to do and pick a college and go there and study it and then get a job. And when they not all, come back and they're like, I'm miserable and I don't know what I'm doing. And it's like society is just heaping down this, like, you have to do this, you have to do this. And I refuse to do that with my kids. I'm like, I can afford for you to live home right now. One of them's 22, the other one's 15, so I have to keep him. But, I'm like, I can afford to have you here. Take your time, figure it out, and when you're ready to go off into the world, go off and be happy doing the thing. I don't care how much you change it. So, yes, I did have my own midlife crisis because I was probably 42 when I walked out of my job, and I probably should have been a psychologist long, long ago, but I got pregnant and I decided, I'm just going to get a job and support my daughter, and I was happy. I wasn't miserable at all. My life was simple and I was enjoying it and it was fine. I started getting my signs as I got a little bit older. So you can call it a midlife crisis, or you can call it the absolute correct divine timing of when I was ready to realize what I'm supposed to be actually doing.
Your awakening. My
awakening. And I just think that we have to take the pressure off of this is all, like, we're supposed to be done with our lives at 50. Absolutely not. Like, I'm like, subtract 25 years off whatever age you are, and like that's where you are.
I'm 18 again.
Exactly. Woo! So yeah, I have, feelings about that. And I think it happens, and then there's this freaking stigma around it, which is other funny. I remember making a comment a while ago to a friend of mine who we were talking about, like, the midlife crisis, and that these got, who do you ever see driving these sports cars, right? It's like these older guys that, like,
definitely
no young
not
girl,
helping their image at all.
Well, no, but I'm saying no girl, they're like these young girls, like they don't want to be with, Pops in the Corvette. And I'm like, that's because Pops can afford it now. Like, you can't afford that shit when you're 22, unless you come from that family. So it's really just funny how we just heap our frickin' judgments and like our stigmas on all of these things. Got to get rid of that. Did that answer your question?
Kind of.
Did I go off on like a total?
No.
Okay.
If I can touch on something,
Yeah.
most of the
wait, let me get the zipper down first.
Oh, sorry.
Here's a waiver.
Oh, thank you. No, most of the I train a lot of kids. I work with athletes, and I have a lot of high school kids, and I see a ton of them that I feel like they're going through that process you talked about, where it's like, these kids barely know how to tie their shoes, and next year they're supposed to live alone. Like, one of the guys who I trained like one of the parents as well, and he said literally he saw on a Facebook group post, the kid was at Villanova, which is a very prestigious school, and a mom posted, could anyone take 15 minutes out of their day and show my son how to do laundry? I'm like, don't you think that's something you should have gone over before he left for school? And so it's like these kids are getting thrust out there. And I mean, the other thing that I see, and I mean, with the exception of Cliff, where I guess we're all around the same age here, these kids have tutors 24/7 in every class. When I was a kid, you only had a tutor like if you were not
failing.
Smart. Yeah.
Right, if you needed
it was almost
help.
like a punishment.
Yep.
And your parents were pissed at you for it. They're like, damn, we've got to spend more money
I'm
on
not
you.
paying all this money for free public school for you to fail.
Exactly.
For me to have to pay for a tutor. Come on.
Exactly. And then, like they say, 40% of these kids fail out of school their first
College.
year. Yeah. So, I mean, with what you've seen, how do you think that affects these kids as they're going through life? I mean,
This is going to be a 4-hour.
Well, Taya's got an interest. Her daughter, she didn't fail or anything. She just went and she wanted to come home, right?
Oh, yeah, that's common too.
So this is that's interesting.
Yeah.
No, because first of all, I'm just saying that I can talk about this for many hours. So
right.
it's like
the room.
It's a thing. I have strong feelings about, how we're teaching and what we're teaching our kids. I think very often about, creating an institute or a school that does things. And there are schools that do things differently. I think that humaning and life skills, right? Being a good human and learning how to be independent and take care of yourself and others, because one of my high values is connection, and I think humans are supposed to be connected. So that stuff is, pre-K, kindergarten. Oh, first grade, we're learning how to read. We're learning math. We're doing science. We've forgotten. Mm-hmm. And this isn't to say that the public school system isn't trying. My kids are in public school. I think our schools are great. I think their teachers are wonderful, caring people, and they're doing what they can. I just would change the entire paradigm of how it's done. So I think that, and I think the community matters as well. And so what we're doing a lot of times to our kids, out of love, is taking our experience and how we grew up and just kind of heaping it on our children out of I'm going to be better than my parents. But your child may not need you to be what you think that is. And it takes some awareness and a while to, come to that understanding and recognize that you don't have to, and really shouldn't and can't control your child's full experience in the world. There are certain things that you can help them evolve as a human. And really the goal is to help them find what really does make them happy. I don't want to minimize the parents that are, because I was one of them, it wasn't like a sports mom where I lived through my kid because I never played sports, but
those are the worst types.
There were,
because they have the unreal expectations.
They do. And it's the side note, you just got to approach them with empathy because they're experiencing their own thing too, but they are heaping this enormous pressure that they really don't realize that they're doing onto their kids, and their kids are miserable, and most of them aren't going to say anything, and they might act out, and they might turn to drugs, and they might be promiscuous, or they might stay out late and rebel, or do whatever, and you're taking a spirit that is here to have its own experience, and you're just heaping all of this stuff on it, and you're this is how you're supposed to do it. Figure it out. If you don't figure it, can you imagine I can't imagine the pressure. So I didn't go to college. So I don't know if any of the three of you experienced this firsthand, but my parents were whatever you're interested in, that's what you'll study. I feel very fortunate that I wasn't pushed to do any specific thing. I sort of can't imagine what that does to a person to have to feel like you're living for someone else. And so I think it's really, there's a lot of pressure on kids. And I think the community makes it different too. Like I know there are certain communities that are way more rigid. So these people they're not living for themselves. So that's part one. My daughter's experience. So she's the brain. She wants, she's the 4.0. She's the one that wanted, and she's the student. Like she's actually really a great mix of everything, but she definitely was the student. She wanted her work done. It had to be perfect. And she was really proud of that. And she wants to go into business. Business is broad, but I didn't need her to narrow it down. Learn about business and apply it where you want. So she wanted to go to, she had a couple of prestigious schools herself, right? And one of them was BU,
Good school.
The business school. And she got in there. And, our story is, it's insanely expensive for normal people, even with the scholarship that she got.
Very light term scholarship.
Right.
Yeah.
And I cried privately and also on the way up to Parents' Day, but I was like, she worked for this, like how am I going to stand in front of her and be like, sorry, I know that you worked for this, but you can't go. Mm-hmm. So I told her, laid it out, and I was like, this is the cost. This is what we can cover. This is what you might graduate with. If I have some good years, maybe I can pay off more, but I want you to be aware. Your choice, Mm-hmm. So she wanted to go, and we brought her up there, and there were a lot of reasons why her experience was not great. Mm-hmm. But she also, one of the big ones was she just never found her people. And she can be outgoing if someone grabs her and says, like, let's go out, and then she meets a group, then she's good. But she's not really the one that's going to, like, walk, into a club and be like, hey. But she didn't find her people. And then I think she told me some of the classes she got put in were, like, seniors. So she wasn't even in classes with freshmen. So she didn't even have like an academic group that she met, from what I remember her telling me. And she was miserable. And then she was miserable because this was her dream school and she really wanted it to work out. It was a really hard time for her. And I said, listen, it's not a prison sentence. Like, whatever you want to do, like, you got to understand, you can take a leave of absence and you can come home and you can do some stuff and you can go back if you want to. You can handle this however you want, but I'm behind you. 9 out of 10 of my friends or people that I approached to help me cope were like, you got to make them stick it out. They got to do the first semester, like, leave them there. They'll get over it. I'm like, well, she's dropped 35 pounds and she's, her eyeballs are bulging out, and they're like, let her do it, And I'm like, I don't know. That doesn't feel right to me. And I wasn't like running up to save her. I really wasn't doing that, but I was trying to just let her know that it wasn't a prison sentence. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, listen, I'm really proud of you. This is where you wanted to go. I had to let you do it, because if I had said you couldn't, for the rest of your life, you'd blame me. Go, check it out, see if it's everything that you want it to be. And it wasn't. And she came home and she figured it out. And I think there's a piece of her heart that still is a little bit like, that kind of sucked. And I'm like, yeah, it did. But, she's switched things. She's gone into like 2 or 3 different things. So she even said for the amount of money it is per year, I'm not even enjoying the college experience. Like, forget the classes. She's like, I can't even like say that I'm enjoying the experience at all. And it's just not worth the money.
It's a very expensive mistake.
Exactly.
I think that's what sets the kids up for that weird, like, trying to make somebody happy. Just stick it out. Why? Because I said so. Well, I have to do this because my parents said so. Then you stay, and maybe you get over it. Maybe just grind it out. And then you get out thinking you need to grind out the next 25, 30, 40 years of your life because someone's like, just do it.
Well, you do.
It just sets you up for
you
failure.
Mistrust your own.
Yeah.
Your own signs. It's not the word I'm looking for, but like
your own judgment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because somebody's like, well, maybe, like if I understand you go start a job the first day, it sucks, like anybody's going to be like, listen, stick it out. Like maybe it'll change. And there's some truth to that. Right. Mm-hmm. But when you're constantly being told you got to finish what you started, you're a failure if you don't, suck it up and get through it. What can you, especially when you have choices to do other things, like, I'm just like, I don't know if I can really agree with that, because I think then when you are in other situations and your body is clearly telling you that you are not meant to be there, you ignore those signals. That was the word I was looking for.
Well, Cliff, you're younger than the rest of us. Did your parents
by a long shot
make you? What did they have plans, quote unquote, plans for you?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of my family came from trades or just like my dad was middle management in a warehouse, and they're like, you got to go to college, you got to do something better than this because this sucks. And on the one hand, like, yeah, that stuff does kind of suck. Like, I witnessed the stress it put on them firsthand, but then it sends me off to college, and I'm like, okay, I have to do this, but what does that mean? What do I want to do? And, I first went I wound up at the college I went to because I originally went for music.
Okay.
I thought that was going to be my thing, and I took one course my first semester, and I'm like, I am in way over my head. But I was lucky to kind of find some people, and ultimately the reason I'm doing what I do today is I hired a personal trainer there at the college, and I was like, this is awesome. This is something I could do, and I kind of went down that path, but it's definitely hard it's hard if you don't have people to, like, my 4 out of the 6 people I was in a suite with my sophomore year ended up dropping out. 2 of them ended up dropping out before the year even started.
Jesus.
Wow.
I do think that unless you're going to be the traditional NBA type person, I think the traditional educational path of high school, college, whatever, is super antiquated, and I don't know how much longer it's going to last in its current form, because there's a lot of these instances, right? And then how are you supposed to be a 22, 23-year-old kid coming out of school with $250,000 worth of debt, starting with like a $40,000 a year job? Like, fuck out of here. This is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the problem is...
Does anybody see a problem here?
Yeah.
I'm just wondering. Is it just me?
No, it's a huge problem. And the problem is the degree is almost like your permission slip to get a job. Mm-hmm. It's like no one's going to hire you until you have it, but you have to have money to get it. Comes back to the same thing. You have to have money to make money, right?
Like, how many of your kids have their eyes on D1 schools or athletic scholarships? I'm sure a few, right?
Right now, yeah, probably about 7 or 8.
And do they all want to? Are any of them good enough to go pro at any of this? Okay. Yeah. Do any of them have backup plans if that were to happen?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They're luckily, I mean, like the kids that I get tend to be pretty level-headed. I've had 1 or 2 in the past that it was like go for broke, and I was like, you guys are going to fall really hard.
You're definitely going to break,
because it's just there's too much working against. So like, for example, I had a kid super talented. He went to a junior college out of high school because he was expecting to get drafted right out of high school, which you can do in pro baseball.
Yeah.
That is a possibility. He did get drafted, but it wasn't in a financially suitable place. And there's a whole lot to it, but he didn't commit to a school, like a 4-year school. Mm-hmm. So you don't have any leverage. So baseball scouts are basically going to be like, all right, well, I'm going to offer you $20,000 or you can shovel fries the next 3 years. Your call. So he ended up going to a junior college and then got picked up. and did very well when he got his opportunities, but he basically ran into a situation where he was at a level called single A, which is like your first year in baseball. Doing fantastic. Like blowing the doors off everyone.
For what team, what system was he in?
He was in the Seattle Mariners organization, I
Okay.
believe, but don't quote me on that, even though I'm quoted, I'm talking into a microphone.
That wasn't you.
Yes. But, and then basically he asked the guy, he's like, what do I have to do to move up?
And then the pants came down.
Yeah, exactly. No, and then his coach told him, he said, you really want to know what you need to move up? And the kid said, yeah. And he goes, the guy who's the level above you has to start screwing up. He was like, because he's doing just good enough to hang on.
Oof.
And he said, until he drops below that level, you and I are together, Bubba. So that's basically the kid never got out of that level. And then, the turnover all happened and he ended up getting released. And I don't know what he's doing now. I know he's not making a lot of money, though. Might be shoveling fries, which there's nothing wrong with. There's nothing wrong with if you like fries.
Exactly.
But, I mean, it was, he needed a contingency plan, and he didn't have them. But most of my other kids, to answer your question, the kids that I work with, most of them are very good about it. They're a little bit more realistic. And, like, give you an example, another baseball player I have, kid throws the ball 94 miles an hour when he was 16 years old.
Yeah.
He committed to Duke because it was an academic school.
Yeah.
So that's the road he took.
Huh. I know that one thing John said previously is that because John's Filipino and I think 2 of his kids are half black and half Filipino,
Yeah,
right? All of them?
All of them.
And his thing was, as we were going through the Asian hate and Black Lives Matter, he's like, I don't even know what to say to these kids. He's like, because one, he feels like he can't, because how do you address that? And then eventually what happens if he says something to them and they say something to somebody else and someone gets outraged and whatever, right? Cancel culture. Whoa. And I never got to say this to him because we would have gone on the podcast way, way longer. And it kind of comes back to your point about impressing your own things onto your kids. And I wanted to tell him, and hopefully he'll hear this, is that because he's just like, I don't even really know what to say to my kids all the time. You can't necessarily, especially in those situations, you can't parent the kids from your fear perspective, because then all of a sudden you just project all your fears about all that stuff onto them, and they don't get to make their own decisions, experience the situation for what it is, and then you just make them like twice as scared of a situation that may not adversely affect them, but they don't get to make their own choices and decisions about it. And I guess some of that still comes back to this stuff. The parents are like, you're going to be successful, you're going to do more than I did, I'm going to pay for it so I get a little bit of say. Like it goes into all these places, and the kid's just like, okay, I'm not old enough to make my own decisions, or I can't pay my own bills, so I better do what this large individual in front of me is telling me what to do.
Right. It's, I have been there. I will not, as much as I have thoughts, opinions, beliefs, and theories on how all of this happens in the world today, like I will never take away or judge a parent for how they're trying. I think literally I believe that everyone on the planet in every moment is doing the best with what they have in that moment. And I think that when you have children, do you have kids?
I do not.
Okay. So I'm sort of assuming that you don't have kids yet.
Not that he knows of.
Not that Cliff knows of.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm hoping not.
None that you love and are attached to. Okay. So, really the truth is, that fear is a really powerful thing, because it's just like now you have this thing that you never understood the idea of loving something that much, and then you have it, and then you want it to be happy. See, so here's the thing. Like I remember listening to, and I think it was Dr. Shefali. So she is a...
the Shefali sisters.
No. Are they real people?
No, I just made it up.
No, they're on the Golden Girls.
Right. I was like, that's another channel, not this channel.
I was worried I was too young for a reference.
Half his references come from, some of them are like, yeah, I gotta really know that. And then you feel like you're in the in club, and the rest of them he's like, I don't know, I just made that up. Like, what?
Genius cannot be contained.
Right. So Dr. Shefali, so she's like, I say like loosely a parenting coach. She's also, I think, she's a PhD. I'm pretty sure, maybe even a psychotherapist. I'm sorry if anybody knows her, and I'm like brutalizing what she actually is.
Butchering her credentials.
She's amazing. And she actually said, and I just remember this, one of the podcasts I was listening with her, she was talking about how when she asks a parent ultimately, what do you want? Like, here's your child, like, what do you want? And they're like, well, I just want them to be happy. And she's like, well, the first problem is you started that sentence with I. She's like, this has nothing to do with you. And she is like in your face about like your children come through you. They are not yours. Like, we got to figure this out. And, I had, if Taya was here, it'd be interesting to get her perspective on this. We would have to do that someday.
That wouldn't be terrible.
I might be terrified. I'm trying to, so Taya is my oldest. So she's going to be 22 now. She is my child from a previous marriage that was an abusive marriage. And I literally fled with her. Like, in order to get out of that situation, I wrapped her up and I finally was able to leave. And I hid at a family member's house for 6 months that he did not know. And so there was like serious fight or flight survival shit happening there. Which it took me 18 years to realize that the PTSD from that caused me to like overparent her, which I thought I was like the coolest mom in the world, right? I was like, my kid, like, I'm going to be chill and whatever. This poor child, like I just didn't see it. I didn't see it. I would have to straight up ask her if she would have described me as a helicopter mom. I don't think I was because I wasn't like in her, I didn't think I was in her business. I mean, I may have, but I just tried to foster like communication. And my point in tying this back to like what you're saying is it's almost impossible until you really learn it and do the work yourself to not project your fears like onto your kids. And Juan will tell you, and it's always infuriating. Juan is my husband. It's always infuriating when he says something like this and he's right because I'm so, aware and I'm the life coach, right? And so when
he's on page 1 of the life coaching manual and he's like, what the fuck, man?
Yes. He's on like Life Coaching 101, like the introduction. And then he gets me, right? He's like, don't project your fear onto the kids. And I'm like, I want to punch you in the face, but also you're right. Like it's just, and you don't realize that you're doing it. And so you parent in the way of, this made me unhappy. This was my experience. I want to do better. I want to make you happy. I want you to be successful. And it really is this like living through them in this way that you don't realize you're doing. Like, you just don't realize that you're doing damage. Like, I told both my kids, I was like, I'm damned if I do and if I don't, and I'm aware of that, and here's a check for therapy, and I love you. Like, I'm like, I'll try to do better. Let's just communicate.
Well, how's Jacob? He's 15. He's the son.
Yes.
Does he feel the same way?
It's my little dude.
Does he feel like you're a helicopter?
You know what's funny? I don't think so. And Taya tells me, she's like, you guys, like, she's like, you got it out with me. And like, you have like just ignored him, And I'm like, that's kind of what happens, like with your second child. But I did have my big awareness in therapy about my daughter. Like my daughter, she is a good, like, she wasn't even doing anything that was like cause for me to freak out the way that I would. Like, that's where I look back now and I'm like, oh, Lauren, like, oh my God. But I was in therapy for it. And I remember this one day, like, I was bawling my face off. Like, the pain and the fear that I felt in my heart over her doing nothing and this fake future that I had constructed from my PTSD and from, whatever I thought was biologically connected to her potential and all this stuff. And my therapist was like, okay, so let's go here. Like, what happens if she goes down this road? And I was like, my God, like, I don't want to even think about that. And she's like, you're thinking about it every day.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, let's think about it. And she kind of walked me through it, and I walked out of there a different person. So with Jake, I am definitely more relaxed. I am not going to say that I don't have those tendencies, but see, also there's a meme, maybe you've seen it. It's mostly like a girl meme, but it says, it's the side by side, and it says what I'm actually doing on a Saturday night and what my parents think I'm doing or whatever. And then there's one that says, where I actually am or where my parents think I am. And it'll show her like at the library, but the parents think she's like in a ditch, dead. And I'm like, this is the truth. Like, if you don't answer me for like an hour, I'm like, you're dead.
Coked up at a party.
Yeah, but even dead. Or dead. So with Jake, I'm definitely calmer. And also, he's a completely different personality than Taya is. That's sort of the other thing too, is that you've got to learn, like, you're having kids, but these kids have their own personalities. So you may not be compatible with them as people, and you still love them. And so you're like, oh my gosh, but like, how do you learn the skills to foster a personality that isn't compatible with your own?
So to that point, do you think sometimes parents who are struggling with this, because John usually thinks about this too, like when we see, and I'm sure Mike, when you see the parents that show up, and parents are all around our ages, right? Some of them in varying states of health and fitness. Do you think that whether they know they're going through these things or not, trying to figure out how they're parenting their kids or if they're doing the right things, do you think that takes away from their ability to then look after themselves and try to stay healthy themselves? And I mean, you've had issues with staying on track with your nutrition or your workouts. And did you ever feel like thinking about your kids in this manner took the focus off you? Or was it just a completely separate thing?
No, I would say, how can it not be related? And it's way easier to put all of your energy onto other people and like, onto the family or onto the house or onto the dog or onto the kids, and let's ignore me, and I just think that it's really a learned skill to understand. And there's also the wording around like self-care, like especially for women, it's like, self-care, book a massage. So in order for me to do self-care, I'm supposed to book a massage, but like massages don't do anything for me. Like, that's not self-care. You know what self-care is for me? To learn how to say the word no.
I think the other stuff, I see that too. Like, I'm getting my lashes done, or I'm going to get my hair done, or I'm going shopping. It's like self-care. I'm like, it's kind of selfish care. Mm-hmm. There's a place for it, but it's not the same thing.
No, it's not that soul-filling, stuff that really needs to happen. You should just be allowed to do that stuff because you want to, and not fucking put it under this title of self-care so you feel like you have permission to do it when you step away from your family for an hour to get a manicure. It's like, I just want my
I just want my nails to look fucking sexy, bro.
Right, like, I just want my nails done. Like, this isn't filling my soul up. I'm not going to come back to my family
if anything,
in any more of a better mental state.
If anything, sitting in those fumes for an hour really kind of sucks your soul. It's
I get pedicures because, for the outer people in the world, because I'm going to wear flip-flops and I don't want people afraid. My feet are ticklish. It is awful. I sweat and almost cry through the entire process.
Wow.
So, Juan will be like, go get a mani-pedi. And I'm like, you do understand that I don't like them. Like, they are not fun for me. But yeah, I think that, it definitely is, especially when you have an infant, right? And I mean, if you're a single parent, then you're just compounding the whole thing because you have this little being that you have to keep alive and it's not sleeping and it is madness mostly. That if you haven't already gotten into the phase where you know how to care for yourself and you have that shit down, it's going to be difficult.
Yeah, we see it.
That too.
We see it a lot, and we're always wondering, are they less concerned about themselves and more concerned about keeping that other being alive? Or is it just easier to be like, or is it an excuse? I don't know. I guess you could go either way.
Probably is different for everyone. You know, I'm sure. So I remember.
Because I know there's parents out there who, it's going to sound bad, but they probably don't give a shit as much as they should about where the kids are doing or how they're being parented, and just like, I just got to worry about, making sure they're not getting pregnant or drunk driving or whatever. And they're not trying to foster them to be better people. It's just like, I just want to keep them out of trouble type of thing.
Right.
It's like
busy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keeping the kids busy keeps me busy.
Right.
And then no one's getting anywhere.
Right. So you said a couple of things in there, but before we get to that part of what you said, you touched on something that I know you brought up in one of the other episodes about, like, well, you just said it now. Like, is it that, when we get over 40 or 45 we just don't care, or like, what is it? Or we don't realize that we should be doing things. I think it was John, that was the one that said, like, he sees these other fathers, and he's like in great shape, and like he sees these other fathers, and he's like, like, what happened? Like, what? And I mean,
how many walls have you hit on the way here?
part of me did think, though, like, I gotta say, like, look, there are some people that it's not important to them. It's not even that they're struggling with it.
They're not even thinking
happy,
about it. Yeah.
Right. They are happy. They are, whatever it is, and I don't know. And we know that to an extent, what you look like and your weight is not a true indication of your health. So if their blood work is good and they're healthy,
happiness.
Right. So, God bless if they're healthy and they're fine and they don't care aesthetically like what they look like, then that's their choice. So I think there's definitely like choice there, although I do think that, when you get older, if you find yourself suddenly like out of your marriage looking for like another person, you're in the gym.
Yeah.
Like, how many people do I know that were like,
Nothing gets you in shape faster than a breakup.
I'm on that breakup diet.
It's
Yeah. Literally talking to one of my kids about that today. He just came home from college. He was like, wow, man, you look great. He was like, broke up with the girlfriend about a month ago. I was like, that's where those 20 pounds went.
Well, it's true, but it's like, what I would like to do is intercept that thought and just be like, okay, so why are you doing this now? Are you doing this because you're like, oh, I don't look that good and I need to like get myself on the market so someone else will be attracted to me? I hate that. Or I want to feel better. I recognize that I let myself go. I'm doing this for me. Like, that's where you should be.
I saw really interesting. I don't even know how it showed up on my Twitter feed. It was yesterday, and a woman posted something that she said, my husband is blaming me for his drinking and his gambling because I gained weight. And it's like one of the reasons we're not having sex. She's like, I want a divorce. And there was a lot of people who were like, you got to take care of you. That's ridiculous. It sounds like he's just putting his own excuses on you. And I kind of agree with that. But there was one person.
For the baggage, return to sender.
And there was one.
Thank you, no thank you.
Oh, that's phenomenal. That's phenomenal.
There was one person in there that said, honest question is like, why do you have to wait for something like this to just want to be healthier? Like, and put yourself out in front of other people? Like, kind of just, if you want to take care of you should always want to take care of yourself. And that doesn't mean you have to be a certain size or certain weight or, ripped and blah, blah, blah. But at some point you do kind of just try to be healthy. And why is what happens with that current person going to change where you're going to go? You should always want to be like that. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
So I would say more, right? What you're saying makes sense, right? You should always want to be healthy. Like, that's obviously like we are taught, right? If you want to live long and you don't want to be in pain, you want to live a healthy life. But if you think about how you're saying it, right? Who are we to tell anybody that they should want to be healthy?
Right.
Right. So what my question would more be to this woman would be, what got you here?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Do you have a problem with the weight you put on? Like, how are you feeling about yourself minus what your husband's kind of dumping on you right now? Because he's obviously got his own shit going on. So what was the trajectory of how when was the last time you felt good? When were you happy? Like, tell me those moments, and let's figure out what you want, So it's really just bringing it back to the person more so than this sort of social, desire that you have to look a certain way, or that if you put the weight on, your husband won't want to have sex with you, or like whatever. Like, that's.
Well, I certainly don't want to have sex with your husband, so.
With my husband?
Right.
Well, he lost some weight. He looks good. Sorry.
These guys are like, what?
No. It's fine. It's fine. Let's explore these feelings, Dave. Whose husband do you want to have sex with?
That was very good.
Cliff, what would you like that?
It's all you, Cliff.
Yeah.
The floor is yours.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't know.
Some of you guys can't see this, but Cliff is beet red right now. and trying not to breathe, actually, let alone speak.
Well, the video will be up.
Oh, there's a video? I want
to.
Great.
To that point, though, right? Like, Andrew asked me a very pointed. He asked everyone this pointed question because it's something that he's doing for one of his other clients, and he's like, "Would you rather know when you're going to die or how you're going to die?" And I said, after some stuff going back and forth about how I occasionally have paralyzing thoughts about that, like driving to work, just about my own mortality and thinking about even it's like I believe in. I have faith in a higher power, and the universe is always doing something, and like wherever it's going to go is going to go. But still, sometimes the next thing of the unknown is still fucking really scary, especially something so permanent. But I said, I think I'd rather want to know how than when, because people always want to know. It's like, oh well, I know if I only have 10 days to live, then I'll do all the cool shit I want to do. And it's like, if you want to live a fulfilling life, just do that cool shit now. Instead of having these like fake parameters around, like what's preventing you from climbing the mountain or talking to the male or female that you've been wanting to talk to or quitting your job and doing something, whatever. What's keeping you from doing that? So sometimes I think going back to these people who, whether they don't know if they want to be healthy or they want and lost their way, I think they kind of lose sight of themselves. Like what makes them them? What are their values?
Right.
And they start living for like the checking the boxes. Oh, I got to pay the mortgage. I got to get these reports done. I got to make sure that my kids can compete with the other kids in the neighborhood, like that weird shit that I'm sure everyone's seen.
Keeping up with the Joneses.
Yeah. Just like do the stuff that blows your hair back and let your kids do the same thing. And then you just kind of you're able to live a little bit more authentically.
Yeah.
And then if you're doing that, I feel you can be way more honest with yourself. It's like, oh, I've done all these things and I feel really great, but I don't feel great about this. So maybe let me tackle that thing because I'm doing everything else the way I want it to. And this is the one thing that really needs a lot of work. Mm-hmm. But I know it's scary.
It is scary, but I also believe that, and it's over time. It's not something that happens super quick. But I think that when you really align with the things that bring you joy in your life, and you're really doing those things, and you're open to the experiences, and you can release the stuff that isn't working for you, and like all of that, the health almost falls into place. And I'm not saying that, like for me, so I'm like 20 pounds more than I'd like to be right now. And when I left my job, I was sure I was going to lose it because I was like, yeah, I'm like out of the stressful.
No stress. I got time to work out.
That did not work well for me, clearly, right? But what I'm saying is, so like you may still have to, if you want to lose some weight, like put some effort in there. But I legitimately think that when you find your happiness first, if you're not happy in life and you're coming to the gym, even as an outlet, which is doing like chemical things to your brain, which is good, you're not ever going to really be where you think you want to be if you don't get to that other stuff first.
I've had that conversation 1,000 times in the last couple of weeks with the new people coming in saying it's the first thing they want to do is like, well, I want to be 130 pounds.
Yeah.
Okay, why? What happens at 130 pounds?
Yes.
Are you suddenly famous? Are you a gymnast? Are you a better mother? Are you a better spouse? And they're like, they don't know how to answer the question. Uh-huh. And I just explained to them, I said, I understand what you want, but do you understand why you want it?
That's very good.
And once they can either answer that or not, then we can kind of dive into it. Like the nuts and bolts of losing weight, creating a deficit, and blah, blah, blah. Like that's the easy shit.
Yep.
It's the stuff underpinning the whys and what will help keep them on track that's the most important.
Correct.
You know, it's not about when you want to lose weight, it's really not about losing. It's about kind of gaining new habits and new insight into like what is making you tick at this moment.
Mm-hmm.
So I think people just need to connect with themselves more.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's one thing I've told John when Will and Andrew were here. You know, I said you kind of have to differentiate between what you're good at
Mm-hmm.
and what you like doing.
Like what you're
Because
passionate
John's a great manager. He can run a facility with his eyes closed, probably with
Right.
one eye if he had to.
Mm-hmm.
But
And
I
one
even
arm.
said he's like I don't think I like
Probably
doing it.
one leg.
Yeah,
Yeah. Just half of him.
half.
Right.
But he does. He said he's like he doesn't really love it.
Yeah.
So it's
And it takes a while to realize that too. Like to go back to the whole like midlife crisis thing, like sometimes just because you aren't passionate about what you're doing doesn't mean that it's sucking the life out of you and you hate it so much that you've just like walked through the muck for 10 years. You know what I mean? Like it was probably a good job. He got something from it. He didn't hate coming to work every day until you do. Until you're like, oh gosh, suddenly like this isn't my, you know.
It's great till it isn't.
Right. And I think that there's just a space in our existence and our brains and our experience that, you know, everything is always changing. I think that freaks people out when they suddenly find themselves in a position where they're like, I'm not enjoying this anymore. Oh my God. And I'm like, no, like you're either growing or dying, right? Like if you're comfortable and you're here, you just want to sit here and be comfortable for the next 40 years. What's the fun in that? As I say it though, I'm like, I'd like just a couple days of comfort, please.
well, you can hang out.
Would be great.
The comfort zone for like a week is cool,
Exactly.
but I think when you get stuck in, you know, there's some people like, well, the grass isn't always greener. It's like I'm not saying that the grass is going to be greener, but maybe
Right.
it's a little bit calmer.
Right.
Maybe it's a little bit more fulfilling.
Maybe there's something over there for you that will enhance your life in some way.
Yeah.
You know,
It
and
doesn't-
if you're being pulled, gotta go check it out.
Sometimes it doesn't always have to, because a lot of people will look at, like, what, you know, am I going to get paid more, or is it like a quote unquote? Is it a better job? Does it look better on the resume or
Right,
whatever?
right.
So how much of that really matters?
Mhm.
Do you love it? No. Well, then fucking who cares?
Yeah.
But if it's, you know, if you're VP of, I don't know, pick anything.
But we've been conditioned that way though,
I know.
right? The older you get and the more jobs you have, each one should pay more.
Mm.
And I'm kind of like, that doesn't much make sense if, you know, you were the VP of a corporation that was great, but you hated it and you really, really like digging ditches in the cemetery. It's not going to pay the same thing, but you're going to be a hell of a lot more happy and fulfilled over here. And that is the thing that fucking matters.
Custom shovel handles, like pimped out
And
dirty
not-
boots.
Now,
Living large, baby.
Listen, I mean, there's some, you know, I have my own line on Etsy. It's shovel handles. They're-
Sequin
I-
coveralls with skulls on the
they're-
back.
No, what is that? When it's come on, the machine that blings things out.
Oh, god damn, the bedazzler.
The bedazzle.
The graveyard edition.
Yes.
I'm kind of proud of the fact I'm the only person who didn't know what that was.
Stop.
Everyone else answered. I'm like, I know.
That's your Christmas present.
That would be a first in a while. No, it's
Right. Aw. So yeah, I just, you know, it's like that thing. It's like, and we've just been conditioned that way. And I'm not saying, you know, the other part of it is that when you start young and you're like building your way up and then you have a family and you amass more stuff to take care of.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, if I back off of this, like, how am I going to make my car payment? How am I going to pay for my house? How am I going to pay for my kids? How am I going to blah, 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 blah? And it's all about survival. And I'm not saying, you know, it's not easy. And I'm not saying that you go like, when you had said, like, if you find out you have 10 days to live, like, you know, So, okay, if you find out you legit have 10 days to live and you know that to be true, like I can go clean out my bank account and do some big shit in the next 10 days. I'm not about to go
until
to that
on day
same
9 the
level.
doctor calls you and said, "Oh, we mixed up the files."
Exactly.
Son of a bitch.
Exactly. That's what would happen,
It
right?
was a good 10 days, though.
Exactly. And
Kids,
then
we're
you're
back in
like,
survival
"Whoa,
mode."
I have lived more in those 10 days. Like, you probably have, like, started this whole, like, I don't know, like manifestation spiral for yourself, and you can like figure it all out. Or, you know, you go buy some booze and you sit on the corner and cry, which is, you know, an option. But it's, I forgot my other point.
That's okay. We were crushing it.
Okay.
But even if in a hypothetical scenario, right? It's like, let's say that happened, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, the doctor made a mistake. I've spent all my money. Okay.
Exactly.
But you're still here.
Yeah.
You still have an opportunity to do something, anything. And maybe one of those crazy things you did while you were blowing all your whole bank account, maybe like, you know what? I think I really want to do that. And there's never anything wrong with that.
Nope.
I tell people, it's been a long time. Like, we all talk about, we've been doing this for so long. We've all been in this industry for like 20 years. And I have no problem being picky with the people I take on the train or do nutrition with, because it's like, I know who I want to work with. I know the people I align with, and I know who will benefit the most from how I operate. But I forgot my point too. Son of a bitch.
So that's
Scratch that.
Oh, but it's like,
the forgetful pandemic.
I can look at that and have I made more money in the past? I have. Am I surviving now and being able to take everything that I need to? Yes. I'm perfectly happy being able to choose the people I want to work with, choose the people that are very fun to work with, and then have the opportunity to come and do something like this. Like, my schedule is what it is, and I can still do things. I can meet here every week and put stuff out that other people are actually benefiting from. And then other things have come out of that. But it takes a long time to be okay with, I'm not going to make X amount of dollars. I'm not going to drive this. It's like,
Yeah.
it took me a little while to figure
That
out.
was very Andrew. Andrew just came through me. Did you hear that? I said, yeah.
Right. Okay. So,
There you go, Andrew. You're not here, but
yeah,
Gotcha.
but it takes a lot of jumping without a net, just kind of swinging for the fences. And if you connect, great. And if not, well, then you just figure out the next thing. But you really got to pull down a lot of preconceived fears, and
You
sometimes
do.
tell your parents to go suck it and be like, I'm going to do this.
And sometimes you got to just go, like, you got to go through the fear. Like, what you want is on the other side of the fear, you know? And this is not to make light of any of this or say
No.
that any of this is, like, easy. You know, it requires a resilience to be able to just have faith in yourself that you know that no matter what happens, like, you're going to friggin' handle it, right? Like I always say, like, you've handled 100% of your days up until today.
Yep.
You're still here. You're good. So, you know, if you're in a situation where you're really, and I feel like people kind of know, like they know if they're feeling stuck, even if they don't want to really admit it. And it can be scary to admit it because once you admit it, it becomes real. And then you're like, I got to do something about it.
I think one of the first things they do is like, well, everybody feels this way.
Right.
Which you're probably right.
Right.
But doesn't mean you need to be stuck in it.
Right. And they normalize it. And that's, you know, everyone has their own timeline. Okay? If you start realizing that you're feeling stuck or you're not happy with what you're doing, like, you don't have to be terrified and you don't have to jump head first into some unknown, like, I'm going to leave my family or destroy or quit my job and have nothing. It doesn't have to work like that. You can be methodical about how you decide to do that. Start taking some classes, figure out what you might like, you know, like, there are the people like myself who jumps without a net, you know, and it has not been easy. I mean, that's, you know, but I came to a point where I was like, I cannot do this for another minute. And there were reasons that brought me there. And I was like, if I have to get a job at Starbucks, that is what I will do. Like, that was in my mind. I was like, I will survive. You know, so you don't have to, it doesn't have to be terrifying is what I'm saying, right? Like you all have choices, and you can make choices as to how you figure out what your thing is or what you want to do.
I think, I guess it depends on how much value you put on the things you could potentially lose by making those decisions, right? Like, how important is the house? How important is the income? How important is blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. And it's like, does the importance of those things in your life outweigh the fear of possibly losing them? But that's up to that person.
It is. And I think, like, for me, my decisions, like, look, I'm a parent. My children did not ask to be brought into the world, and I do have a standard of making sure that they are cared for until they can care for themselves. I don't even judge parents, by the way, that have moments where they're like, I got to get out of here and do something, and they leave their children. Now, it causes trauma, it causes damage. I get all of that, but I just don't judge those people. And I would have probably made even more crazy decisions if I didn't have kids that I felt like, I have to somewhat be here to take care of them in some capacity. So it's like my house, my car, like, I love my house. It's nice to have a car, but I could wipe those quick and clean away. It would make my kids' lives really difficult. And so I'm not so inclined to do that yet. But the minute that they're out of the house, like, game on, like, things may change. Like, I'm, yeah.
Is Juan aware of this?
Juan is aware of how I think. And if I were like, I'm selling the house and we're like moving to an island and I think he would be like, let's do this.
I saw something today. You guys will find this interesting. I saw that Lifetime is opening up in the Riverside. You knew this?
I just found out about it.
Did he tell you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did he tell you?
No, I told him.
Oh, okay. It came from you.
So when Lifetime opened in Montvale, our ownership shit themselves. Like, they were fucking terrified. They made all kinds of really poor decisions in where they're spending marketing dollars, people they were hiring to help us. We bought spin bikes that I think were shitty because Lifetime had them. They opened, they took about 600 of our members, which is not an insignificant number. We got about 400 of them back over time. Like, Lifetime is what it is. It has a very particular clientele. I don't necessarily think it's our clientele. And I also think that what I've heard of the one in Montvale, it's not what they want you to think it is. But as we were talking, I said to Juan, who's her husband, my supervisor, I said, well, as long as ownership can, like, not make any panicky decisions, I think we'll be okay. And so we can cover a lot of ground in the next 6 months, because it says opening late 2021. And he's like, I'm not going to hold my breath. And he's like, I'll just open up a PT place up in Montvale or Rivervale. I was like, dude, that's what I've been saying. I've been saying that to him for years. I'm like, do not forget that you just said that to me. Something like that.
I think the thought is probably
only because
this is a whole other
between what we have going on with Will and Orange Theory at the moment and everything else I have in my brain, and like even Paul and Alan, right? Yeah. So I would love to have them here, but in the off chance that, I don't know, timing or Canada doesn't open up or whatever, it's like, let's say Totowa opens up in August.
Totowa. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Finish.
Why don't we have those guys down for like the grand opening seminar weekend, right? Like, there's 1,000 different things we can do, right? So I'm always thinking of like, what do we do next kind of thing. So I'm glad he actually said that, because I was always bringing that up to him. And I'm glad that you're like, well, as soon as the kids are gone, we're fucking out of here. Perfect. So I could take this man where I've been wanting to take him for the last 5 years. Out from underneath the thumb of somebody else.
You're our meal ticket, Juan. Do you not understand this?
No, I just remember
and just bleed you dry.
Even a month ago or 2 months ago, I was like, what would it take if salary was irrelevant? What would it take for you to leave here? And he kind of gave me a small list of things. It was nothing crazy. I was like, that's it? Anyway.
Edit this whole part. and I'm thinking, like, who's going to hear this?
I don't care who hears it. We never care. Everyone's got to hear it.
What are you talking about? I love this place. No, he does. I think that, see, here's the thing that it has actually come, it has taken, not time for me to learn, but like time for me to like really, really, really accept. And we can talk about like partnerships and like relationships and like all of that in this piece. My husband is like one of the most like loyal people that I have like met. And to be with me, where I have definitely, you know, my first 23 years on the planet were interesting, and that in some of those years encompassed my past relationship, which was damaging, and all sorts of stuff was happening there about like who I am and my self-worth and what am I? And then my next 20 years, you know, 18 of those 20 years were raising my daughter and living for her, like entirely, like, cause that's what you think you have to do, which is fair, you know? And it's really only, well, let's say the last 5 years or so that I have kind of had this shift of there are certain things that a person can do that look really selfish to other people that are absolutely not selfish.
Right.
And when I have these conversations with my husband, like he would push back on, you know, this place has done so well for me. And this is, I mean, it is his other family. And I had to like sort of release this, why do you care about a job so much type of thing to, you know, putting myself in the comparison, like you're choosing when that's really not what it is. It's just him living one of his highest values, which is this, you know, whatever it is, whether it's loyalty or integrity or like whatever that is, it is easy for him to manifest that value through his association with the gym. And he is coming to, as he gets older, and it's becoming a physical situation, where this man is training, you know, 30-something hours a week on his feet, and he's like, I'm tired, you know? And
I remember there was a day in the summer where we were pretty busy. Before we were open, it was just when we were doing sessions only. And at that time, he was doing about that, like that 25, 30, and I was under him with like 20. And I was like, oh. That was one of the first days I saw him walk on the floor and like just tilt his head back like, fuck, I don't want to do this right now. I've never seen that in the 10 years I've been working with him.
Yep. And I think age is really a part of that. He's like, you know, a hustler. Like he was good when he was 20 years old up till, you know, 40. He was like, he just loved, it was what he loved. Like that was his passion. So, you know, we can sit around and talk about how annoying it is, right? That like you're there 67 hours a week, but we're doing this whole podcast around find your passion and like heaping this freaking judgment on him, you know? And so I had to get there in my head and be like, you know what? Okay. You know, I need you there for certain things like the birth of our child, you know, that would be good if you could show up at the hospital, but like otherwise. But, you know, I just think as he's getting older, he's seeing this, it's just a different picture of like, you know what, because I don't think he can or wants to do what he's doing today in the same capacity for the next
probably not
15 years, you know?
I know I didn't. That's why I'm not removed, but it's like I said, I'm completely comfortable with being as picky as I am because I've got other things that I want to do that jump off of that. I just don't want to be stuck. And I'm not saying he's stuck because he loves it. But I just don't want to be – I don't want to feel like I owe certain things to people I don't really want to owe shit to.
Right. Or why live your life like that? Like what the longest relationship you're going to have on this earth is with yourself. It's not with anybody else. And I'm not preaching like not to care. I'm like the most caring, most empathic person that you'll meet. And like I said, connection is big with me. And I have all these thoughts about these things. But it's one of the questions, I think it was one of my personal coaches that I worked with. And she said her favorite question when a client is like really having this, what do I want to do with my life? Or I can't do X, Y, and Z or whatever. Her question is, who has to die in order for you to live the life you want to live?
Oof.
Yeah. Oof. And I'm like,
Monsieur Rivers.
What?
Jeff Rivers.
Oh, stop.
That I might have to cut out.
You got to cut that out.
I might have to cut that one out. God damn it.
Wait, we can cut stuff out?
I can.
Oh. Oh, you really hold the sword over there, don't you?
Not anymore.
And
anyone who's just listening will not get that joke.
I love that we have video, though.
Hands on the table.
Don't worry, everyone. The reason you hear is Cliff. He's completely fine.
I'm so alive.
I'm going to nickname myself Broadsword.
Oh my God. Kroll.
Got a lot of blood with the sword.
Hey, that's even better than one of mine.
What?
I was like, Broadsword is like cutting a lot of broads with the sword.
Oh my God.
We've been doing this podcast too long. It's only episode 9.
Oh, it's so great.
That's all right.
So great. I think some of it, I understand his gratitude towards the entity that's created the life that he probably, he said it to me, and I'm sure he's said it to you 1,000 times, but I didn't think he'd be able to make the money or buy the house or do whatever because of just training.
Right.
And I understand the amount of gratitude that goes into doing things that you never thought you would do. Mm-hmm. Whether it's how he was brought up, how his parents made him feel, or just how he felt himself. But to that effect, I think that leaving something that's been good to you doesn't mean that you don't show the gratitude for it. It's almost like you're just taking everything that you've learned or grown from and just doing whatever the next thing is.
Sometimes moving on is its own gratitude.
Right.
You're showing respect and just not understanding your welcome.
You can only do the thing for so long before it becomes it's a growing experience. Then all of a sudden it becomes your box and you can't punch your way out of it. And I'm not saying that's what it is for him. I just think that part of it is he feels that if he were to leave and do something different, he's suddenly not being grateful.
I think there probably was a part, at one time that was probably part of it.
Yeah.
Again, like back to the whole loyalty thing, there is this sense of, this person made me or this company made me. And, to your point, like do you really, like, if you were finding that you're not happy, then you really have to consider, like, are you willing to give that much of yourself to be somewhere that you feel obligated to be that you're not happy? He's happy more than he's not happy,
right.
But he's getting to that point. I just think, like, again, like just with age where it's like that, what he's doing is going to want to change. And I don't think he sees it the way he did like 10 years ago. You couldn't even like have the conversation. But now you kind of can. And again, like,
I didn't think I'd ever see that text message from him being like, I'll just do my own thing. Dude, I've said that so many times.
Everyone is on their own journey. Like, they really are. Like, it just takes, everybody's got to arrive to where they're supposed to be in their divine timing. Like, we may see greatness in him, for years and years and be trying to like pull him. But, if somebody doesn't want to be pulled away, then they're just not ready. And chances are if you tried, it would fail and not work out the way you want to. So, it's really, my energy is best spent elsewhere, and I think that he's just, the last 2 years, I think, have just kind of changed and he's grown a lot, I think.
I agree.
Yeah.
Even today, off of him saying, I'll just open my own PT thing. I said this to him yesterday, only because one of my clients brought it up. Would you guys ever think of just opening up like a PT only satellite back up in Montreal? I was like, fuck, why don't I think of that?
I think we did talk about that.
Did we?
I feel like that's something we would have suggested.
I feel like
probably was.
You take the two, him and I, and you just gym branding. We find another spot close. I mean, most of the clientele that we had would probably come back, and it's just gym PT. It's nothing new. It's a great idea.
I feel like it's a pretty good idea too.
Andrew said that Rob's coming up next week. I'm going to get in this motherfucker's ear.
Oh, do it.
Yeah, why not? He signs the checks.
Why not? Is the point?
he's the money.
That's exactly it. Like, you got to be able to, like, have the conversation. I was like, what's the worst thing that is going to happen?
Yeah, if someone says no, what, are you crazy? No, I'm not crazy, but go fuck yourself.
Well, they could turn out like that. You could also opt not to tell him to go fuck himself.
I know, I probably wouldn't.
Yeah.
He's a nice guy. Rob's a nice gentleman.
Oh.
My elbows. I'm getting old. This is 40 and fit.
It's funny. Yep.
So off of that, speaking of new places, she almost had a chance to work in the gym. I mean, I guess you're still kind of affiliated with us. I don't even know. Right? I have no idea.
I don't know. Finish your thought and then I'll tell you.
Well, because then we usually, like, it's funny that I bring up Lifetime, right? And I was having the conversation with a friend, and I said that Lifetime is essentially like a fancy big box, right? Like, I don't look at them as anything other than that. It's like 24 hours with a nicer pool, with a nicer locker room, and that's about it.
Right. Until we break it in.
And what I liked about what we were trying to do at the gym was the idea was to have Lauren would be there, and that her programming would be available to members, obviously, but also to be available to staff. Mm-hmm. Like, if you come to work for us, you have your, I don't know, if you just consultation, evaluation, or just your initial meeting. Like, what's going to make you happy as an employee here? Why do you want to be here? Whatever, right? Kind of get your mind right about being in this industry, being a trainer, doing the things that you want to do. And I still think that we've talked about the small boutique-y stuff being kind of leading. I think that's going to lead the charge. I think some of these, that's why I don't really care that Lifetime's going to open up like another big box thing. Mm-hmm. Fuck, I don't give a shit.
It's not the same. It's not competition in the sense that it's taking over what you offer as a company.
Right.
You need to not worry so much about that.
When you guys are here or at Jeff's Quest, do you guys pay attention to what's happening with other clubs, or like if news of this now gets to anybody else, are they even going to care that there's like a fancy new place going on? It's not really close to you guys, and the demographics are different, but I mean, like, would anybody even give a shit?
You mean as far as members, or
yeah,
as like staff?
Both. Because I'm sure there's probably some staff that would be like, oh, I heard this, and they go over there. But meanwhile, if you know their model, they're like slave drivers. They're terrible how they pay their employees. I think they're terrible how they pay their employees.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, coming from, I did work for New York Sports Club for a period of time, and I hated that. That was what made me swear I would never work in a gym again.
Okay.
And then I worked in studios after that.
Mm-hmm.
My ass is back in a gym.
But it's different for you now, though, right?
Now because it's not a contractor.
We have a generous amount of freedom where we're working.
Yeah. Luckily, I don't have anyone looking over my shoulder because that gets ugly real quick.
I also remember too, back in like 2000 and I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 or 7, when they would raise the rates, the PT rates.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, okay, it was actually when I was in management, because I brought this up in a meeting and no one was happy that I brought it up. But I was like, why are we raising?
Those are the best.
Why was there raising training rates? Oh, well, cost of living goes up, and we're trying to have larger profit.
Dispensable income.
Right. And I was like, okay, so then why aren't the trainers getting a raise? If the training rates are going up, why aren't we at least seeing some percentage of that? If costs of living are going up, how the fuck are we supposed to continue to pay this if we're not getting a raise? And it was like dead silence in the room. Like, oh, how are we supposed to answer that? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that probably whatever your deal is probably far better than whatever the splitting used to be.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
So I think for someone like you, it's forgive me if I'm putting words in your mouth, and I might be. I think you probably see the value of being an independent underneath a larger umbrella kind of thing. So you can, like, what makes me want to go to Fountain or Jeff's? Well, my co-band's there. Oh, okay, cool. Then I'll go there. It's like it doesn't almost matter where you work because they're coming to see you. If the place itself is halfway decent, you'll probably be there, right?
I mean, the last place I worked was a little bit bigger than the room we're in.
Was that the one over
Waldwick? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, it's 1,000 square feet. So
Oh my God.
we got the job done.
Okay. And this is your first foray, right?
My second, and I was only at New York Sports Club for Ridgewood for a year before COVID. And
Well, that was a
the
small
entire
club
industry
too.
blew up. So
Yeah, it was small for New York Sports Club. Definitely.
Yeah, because there was that, and then Westwood was bigger, but not by much. Only because it was 2 floors, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I
Ridgewood
remember
was
that.
a bank first?
it was a
Yeah, I think so.
Chrysler dealership.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah,
But it was a small one.
it was pretty small.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to get land in Ridgewood at a reasonable rate.
Oh yeah.
For any business, because that's where my first training studio was that I worked, and that was one of the things I think my boss was paying like, $17 a square foot or something.
I don't even know if that's good or not.
It's on the higher end for the time. This is like we're talking like early 2000s.
Okay.
So, and I mean, we had I think it was 3,000 square feet, so
Yeah.
$5,000 a month.
Get out of here.
Yeah. So 60,000 a year just to be able to pay the rent.
Jesus.
When you're working on $40 a session, that's a lot of sessions.
No thanks. But like, does 24 impact you guys at all ever?
They've tried to, and
They're guerrilla marketing.
I think a lot of people get anxious about different businesses opening up around them, but I think people just need to relax and realize that it's is competing, but it's also different. And to this point, like when Lifetime opened up in Montville, you said you lost 600 people to them, but 400 of them ultimately came back.
Mhm.
Especially in this industry, a lot of people they like the shiny new thing and they want to jump on that, but
100%.
especially with just the gym members, the general population that doesn't necessarily make the most progress towards their goals. Like at a certain point, there comes a realization that or needs to come a realization, I should say, that the shiny new gym isn't the thing that's going to get you to your goals. Ultimately, you have to do the work yourself. And I think in order to foster that as a business, you just need to be authentic and to have those conversations with people like you do, like getting to the roots of their goals, the why, and
He gets it.
I know.
Billy
That's why
Idol gets it.
I don't understand. I'm like, there's dudes who got 15, 20 years on this kid, and they're like, no, this kid fucking paying attention.
Yeah.
You're an idiot.
I actually have a story basically talking about what you just said. I had a kid who I trained who committed to D1 school, and the kid was phenomenal, great athlete, and a new gym opened up where he could do his throwing, his lifting, all under one umbrella. And I mean, to his credit, he told me, he was like, look, I'm done. I'm going to go to this place. And I was like, okay, why? So one of the off-color jokes I made, maybe. And he was like, no, I can just do everything here. And I was like, dude, we've worked together and gotten this far. We've got a pretty good track record. Why are you going to change it now? And he was like, well, because blah, blah, blah. Basically, it was new. Well, so long story short, he goes up there, they change his regimen, they have him doing all this stuff. I think about 4 weeks into that training, he blew out his elbow throwing a bullpen.
Nice.
And I was like...
Surgery or no?
Oh, yeah. Blown out. Had to reconnect I don't think he ever pitched again.
Really?
It was bad. And it was just one of those situations. And it's like sometimes, you know, like to what Cliff was saying, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Right.
You know? Like, yeah, this place is shiny and new, but, you know, I have no track record.
Yeah. I think that's why when we were trying to figure out what else we could do for the gym, it was like, when we buy equipment, like the same equipment we have at the gym you guys have here, like it's just painted different, right? Mm-hmm. But Lauren's not here. I'm not here. You know, it's like, what are you guys? I don't mean you guys specifically. Like, what are these places offering?
Yeah. It's all the same thing. It's all just equipment and space. It's how you're executing it and how you're being told to execute it, and that's what makes the change.
I think one of the biggest things that we did not capitalize on is having you around for staff, especially in the beginning. We had a lot of people who came from Montvale down to Englewood, and Danny, myself, Juan, really the only three that like are there a lot.
Surviving,
right? Everyone else kind of petered off into the ether. You know, Travis is around here and there, Christine, but I don't know. I think a lot of people would have benefited from a 25-minute conversation with you. I mean, look at what you did with Allie, right? You know, she's not like here, but I think that you got her helped get her to a place where she's making a lot of changes in her life.
So I was with Allie. So yes, to your point, you know, I think it's becoming a little more common in the culture now, like just corporate culture, to have like coaches on staff and like even, you know, mental health, like a space where like people, you know, can decompress and like, because I think it's obviously starting to be understood that like as humans dealing with all the stuff we think we're supposed to deal with and handle, we're stressed. You know, I think that my philosophies as to like how some of this can work, especially within the walls of the gym, which I think had like a really nice, you know, I think it was set up to really embrace something like that. I think it would have probably been beneficial to speak to Allie. So I was with Allie earlier today. So by the way, I was telling her that I was coming on here tonight, and I totally think I'll have to talk to you separate, but I totally think she and I should like come back because she's doing some like major things, like putting her story like out into the world.
Allie was a trainer. She's 30, who worked with me for 4 or 5 years, and we invited her to Englewood when Montvale closed, and she kind of came. I think she just hit a point in her life where she was like, I want to do this, but I'm not sure how I want to do this, if that makes sense, right? Probably.
Yeah, well, I think at the time also there was, you know, a lot of people didn't want to be around other people and were nervous. And so it was, you know, I don't know if this was specifically Allie's story, but even like with the other trainers, you know, you had to kind of be in the building willing to sit there for 8 or 10 hours and maybe get one person. So I can see where there is not a big draw for something like that, you know. You have to really, I think, have passion for what you're doing overall to want to even have to do that. And I think that, you know, training per se, you know, there were a lot of members that weren't about to come back and join. And so I think private in-home training just really hit its stride because it was the thing, right? But with Allie too, specifically, like as a trainer and as a fitness professional, she and I ended up working together professionally where I actually coached her. And she has like exploded out into the world with like these things. Like I tell her all the time, like it's the student becomes the teacher because I'm learning from her now because she had an unhealthy relationship with exercise.
Yeah.
Even though she's extremely educated and she knows a lot about what she does and she works with her clients in that way, but she first of all, she loves exercise. So you can call it an exercise addiction, but she's in this place where she loves it. Like, she loves to move and she loves her exercise, but also she recognized that she was doing it combined with eating patterns that were keeping her leaner than was healthy.
Mm.
And so she has recognized that her health needs to come first, and that the idea of the fact that 97%, that's my own statistic, not the world statistic, people that are looking for fitness and joining gyms are looking to physically and aesthetically change their bodies, which is something that she kind of wishes wasn't the thing for everyone, because
that's what kept her in that cycle, trying, like, I have to be the fit trainer kind of thing.
And how she was told when her body composition, her BMI was, I think she said it was 17. And
body fat percentage.
Her body fat percentage.
Which on a female is like...
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you
that's
look
like,
great at
that's
17%.
lean. And she was told that she had to get down to 10% to even represent, like, being a personal trainer.
Who the fuck said that?
I'm not saying.
Do I know them?
Maybe.
Oh,
Oh
fuck.
my God, that's for 10% for a woman is like
That's what you need to
that's-
survive.
That's show day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's stage
For a
right.
But
couple of
that's what
hours
she
before
was
you
saying.
pass
Like,
out.
when
Yeah.
you learn about body composition, men can be healthy at 2% and like survive. Women need 10% is like the minimum they
10
need to
to
survive.
12% is their essential fat.
Yeah.
Men is like 3 or 6.
Right.
It's very, very small.
Yeah.
So
Well, you worked with female bodybuilders.
Yep.
Like, what was the leanest? you
The
ever saw?
leanest, and some
That
of them,
was-
some of these girls were like shredded,
Yeah.
like 12%,
That's ridiculous. And then someone's telling this girl she's got to be 10%.
just to hang out at the gym and be a trainer.
Yeah.
Fuck out of here.
That is so like negligent
it really is.
on so many levels. I mean, you're just pushing eating disorder.
And I think probably I have no idea who it is. Even if I do know them, I couldn't even tell you who it could be.
Think of
That's
the
just
chin.
that's,
Sorry.
that's just somebody who just is unaware of like what the actual what the numbers
it's
are.
a very ignorant thing to say, and I don't know where this came from, this information, is this something that this person actually believed or thought was science? Like, I don't know. But she struggled with a lot of that, and she very recently, and I have this pride for her, not about me. Like, she and I entered into like a coaching relationship, like by accident, kind of. And then she did some initial work, and then she had taken a break and did whatever. And then she came back to me like a year later and was like, I want to do more work with you. And we did another set of sessions. And now the things that she's doing now and like putting out publicly are like, I reminded her today. I was like, I remember the conversation that you and I had when we were in the diner or the deli, whatever. And this was not something that would ever be on your radar. And like, her passion is there to be like, I want to teach people about this. Like, I want to open up the conversation around health and how it does not have to relate specifically to how you look, and that women in general are much more susceptible to feeling like there's some sort of physical ideal, and that it's not really accurate. And what's funny about this too is if you poll men, if you take my body and put me next to Allie, we're going to look different. I'm just going to say, we're going to look a little different. But if you put bags over our heads and like had like 12 of us standing there, like, men are not going to pick me out and be like, that's unattractive. Like, they have done studies where women of all shapes and sizes stand up and they're covered, and the guys are like, they ask the men, like, is there anything you don't like, and which one is your favorite? And like, these women that have these big body dysmorphia ideas of like, I don't look good, or I'm too heavy, or I'm too curvaceous, or my butt is too big, or my boobs are too small. And the men are like, she's great. We have like created this all. I mean, not on our own, but it's just perpetuating. And so she's like doing this work now. And she was like, I want to come on Dave's podcast with you. I was like, I'm going to make that happen.
I'm down. I'm always down for people.
Because another fitness professional, like the things that she's teaching, you know, and she wants to appeal to the men too, because you guys are not immune from this.
No, not at all.
And that's what's important. And me having a son, like that's when I get really passionate about, you know, I don't want to exclude one sex or another. It's just human stuff.
I think it's harder for guys to admit it because a lot of guys, generally speaking, most of the men I've worked with have all been in pretty decent shape. And I have heard from previous clients, like, I don't want to work with that guy because he looks X, Y, Z. And I'm like, but you don't know what he knows. You know, so that's not really like the best gauge, right? Like, there's other guys who look phenomenal, who are dumb as a fucking doornail. And when it comes to when it comes to exercise and programming and whatever, and it's like some people get in shape in spite of what they do, and some people get in shape because of what they do. It's the in spite of idiots that you kind of want to steer clear of.
But they give you everything you want to hear.
Yeah, I know.
They're the ones who just work out. They can eat what they want. They can drink what they want. I worked with a ton of them. I was in New York Sports Club. Like, we had 3 or 4 models that were trainers. I mean, they were legit models. They just trained
men. We're talking about, or
both men and women. And I mean, I would hear some of the stuff they would say. They would be like, "Yeah, I mean, you can have French fries like maybe 4 or 5 times a week, but that's about it." It's like,
wait, I want to go to that trainer.
Exactly. That's what I mean. And that's the issue. And they're like, "Yeah, you can drink. I mean, you know, just try to keep it to hard alcohol." And like,
what?
They're like, yeah.
You're like, what are we pitching here? Where am I?
I was like, I mean, literally just telling people what they wanted to hear. And like 3 months later, I'm like, wow, that client still looks like shit.
Right.
You know? It's like, actually, that was worse. He's hungover trying to work out. Because he took your advice on the tequila, Bob.
The vodka's in the water bottle.
Yeah, pretty much. You said heavy alcohol is okay.
But yeah, but it's really that, you know, it's not discriminating to one sex or another. And which brings us full circle to the whole vulnerability with the men thing.
Even in the gym, right? So I see there's a good 4 or 5, and you probably see them when you're there. There's like 4 or 5 women who come in and like every day, and they do an hour of fucking glutes. Every fucking day.
I love that.
Jesus Christ.
Do they follow it up with like an hour of cardio?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like, yo, if you're in there doing the right stuff, if you did glutes 42 times a week, you should be able to you should be able to bend quarters between your cheeks, not even just hold them.
You walk in a room 2 minutes before your whole body gets in there.
Yeah. But I also see there's a lot of guys in there all doing.
I'm interested in the psychology of that though. Like, I really am interested. Like, why?
I said it to one of the women who she sometimes trains with Juan. And I was like, why do you do this when you're on your own? If you're with Juan now, why you do this so much? She's like, well, what else is there to do? I was like, I don't know. There's like 4 or 5 at least other body parts you could train the rest of the floor. Like, she's just one big butt. Whatever. I'm just fucking call it out. I don't care. If she had silver pants on, she'd look like a fucking baked potato on legs. Like, it's just so big.
Green pants would be a watermelon?
Yeah.
Nice.
She's very sweet, but it's like, I just don't, like, why is this all you do?
Well, now I'm wondering, like, if I'm even picturing what you're saying, bless you, you know, if that part of her body is so pronounced, then she literally may feel like that's the thing she's got to keep under control.
I guess. I don't know.
You know,
maybe.
Like,
she's like, that's because that's what everyone wants to do. I was like, well, is it? I don't know.
That's interesting because that's a movement. The peaches, you know, like everybody, you know, and it's so, you know, it's just the psychology behind that, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, well,
but even last night,
do you want to be like, I'm just interested.
There
like,
was
if we could strip away what the world wants.
There's a lot of guys in there who do like the rope crunches and this and everything. All the guys are doing abs. Abs. No one gives a shit if you have abs or not. No one cares.
I mean, I kind of care.
There's a female perspective, folks.
Yeah. And then there was a young guy doing the whole, like, I'm going to pick my shirt up in the mirror and flex. I'm like, what are you doing?
Oh my God, I feel
I can't stand those kids.
He would definitely do that.
Who would?
My son.
Jacob? Of
I was
course he
not
would.
saying his name to the world. Yes.
It's fine. Of course he would.
But give out his Instagram.
Exactly.
I hear there's some
If
nice
anybody wants to see, right.
But yeah, if at some point, I did a video with Andrew last year talking about. I called it "Fat Kid Superhero" when I was growing up, and I just remember being made fun of, and I didn't. No one likes that. I didn't like it, and I didn't. I also wanted to be healthier. Like I didn't want to get made fun of, but I also am like I want to play hockey. Like I could be stronger. I could lose a little weight, whatever. And I was a big comic and like superhero fan, and we all know how those guys are drawn. So to me, that just was just like an ideal of what like a strong person looks like. But I was never like, oh, I don't look like fucking Clark Kent or whatever. I never thought
Mr.
that.
Incredible needs a leg day.
Right.
But otherwise,
Wow, she just Dave.
You see why we're friends, right? I mean,
Wow.
I Daved Dave.
Dave just got celebrated on his own show.
I've arrived.
John, where are you? Oh, I really wish you could call John.
Oh my
Did
God.
I throw you off your point?
I think so. Because now I'm just thinking like Johnny Bravo, like, you know?
Rabbit.
He just got these little jeans on and a 42-foot torso. And these little pipe cleaners on shoes.
Yes.
Son of a bitch.
I know some guys built like that still.
Yes. Well, you were talking about how they're drawn.
Right. So
Okay.
I don't know. I always saw that as an ideal, and like the body's made to be strong. Like look at like the statue of David from Michelangelo, right? I'm sure there was no bodybuilding stages back then, but that's how this thing was carved. Body's meant to move. The body's made to, be strong. So that's always how I looked at it. I never was like, I need to do this. I need to do that. And even at the times when I was in super shape and I was in contest ready and blah, 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 I'm like, this doesn't feel that great.
Right.
It's like you look great, but you don't feel that great.
No, you're dying.
So I never, and that's one of the reasons I did not do my second show. I pulled out of my second show the night before. Because during that week, I was just like, only like 7 more days before I can eat. I was like, who the fuck wants to live like this? Yeah. And there's people in the gym who live like that every day. Yeah. It's just like they don't see family, they don't go out, they don't have fun because like I need to ascend to this ideal. By whose standards? Like whose ideal is it? It's yours, but for some reason they're just locked in this really, headspace.
What do you get from that?
Yeah, right. Like once you have your abs, are you going to be happy? Mm-hmm. Probably not. It's like I know a few females who ended up getting breast implants because they thought it was going to make them feel better, and they got them, and they're like, I don't feel any different. I was like, well, that's a very expensive way to figure that out. Yeah,
right.
And one person said it to somebody else, the girl who got them, and she was talking to another female, and she's like, are you getting them because you think it'll like make you feel more confident about yourself? She said, because if it is, I'm going to tell you right now, it's not going to do that. But that's when you have to look and like, why am I coming to the gym? Why am I doing this? Why am I doing that? What makes me happy? And if you want to get those things because you just kind of want them, because you're like, this would be cool. That'd be like a check off the box. Right. But you have to realize before you even get there, like, it's not going to make you happy. Generally speaking, I think I put one of my Instagram stories up, like the journey should be what's the fulfilling bit. Yeah. Learning about getting into new habits, learning about why you want to do these things, learning about what makes you sad, what makes you happy, and then just putting in the work, knowing that you can do that and stick to something. Yeah. If you happen to get to X percent body fat or this lift or whatever, then that's just bonus shit.
Yes. I agree with that. And I had a really interesting experience that, with what I do, right, we talk about like the I was going to say the food diet.
That's an interesting diet.
Right.
The food diet.
It's the word diet.
I love those.
I like a diet that has food.
Yes.
In it. Those are good.
Well, to be fair, some of these fucking crazy diets have no food. It's just liquid and supplements and whatever. cockamamie
What could go
spirits.
wrong?
So it's the word diet. So what you're the stories you're telling yourself is part of your diet because it's creating you every day, or sustaining you, or hurting you, or whatever. I have, for somebody that believes in a human's divine right of self-worth, right? We may struggle seeing it, but it's there. Like, everybody that walks around existing is 100% worthy all of the time, every day of their life, whether they see it or not, right? So I not only believe that, I believe that about myself, and I, feel pretty good about like what I do in the world.
We call this the Mjolnir clause.
This is the what?
The Mjolnir clause. Thor's hammer.
The what?
Forget it.
It's a Marvel reference. Mjolnir is the hammer that Thor carried.
No,
Not everybody's worthy.
Yeah,
yes.
Okay, I got you. All right. Listen, I'm a Marvel fan. Okay, I screamed.
I just look like an extra from the movie.
He's like, I think I signed
what's
that
his
clause.
hammer's name?
Mjolnir.
Oh, okay.
It's actually a place in Iceland named for it.
Yeah. All right.
Good. Okay. Don't get me all on Thor. All right. So, Worth. Okay, we're back to Worth. So,
Chris Hemsworth.
Oh my God. So believing that, and then like feeling pretty good about like what I do in the world and like the people that I help, and like, feeling pretty good about that. I'm really recognizing that even with all of that, like there is a piece of my worth that is tied to my physical appearance.
You and I have had this discussion before.
Let's just not, like, it just is what it is. I am not comfortable physically the way that I was 20 years ago. 20 years ago, this is even another conversation I can talk about. Like my daughter, who, in beauty standards is very beautiful. Like she's like, if you talk about social standards, right? She's the girl that can be in the magazine and the whatever, like just this beautiful girl and she's a really beautiful spirit. But the more people tell her that, it's like damaging. And so that's what I was told when I was younger. Everything was like, beauty, beauty, beauty. I had all the good looking boyfriends, blah, blah, blah. And then you grow up, you have 2 kids. I lost the weight from the 2 kids fairly easily, but then you put some extra weight on and I'm married and it's like, no outside sources have validated this for me in a while. And like recognizing that even is a thing that exists is a little weird, but it's the truth. What was my point? My point was, what did you say just prior to this?
Worth.
Can you rewind? I know it was about worth, but what the hell was the point? There was this great, I was going to tie it back
The denouement.
The what?
The denouement was coming up.
What?
The denouement. You never heard of that?
No.
It's like the grand sum up.
I know, yes. Well, I'm going to have to teach me that phrase. Okay, wait. We were talking about, go backwards for a second. What was the last thing you were saying before I freaking started talking?
Mjolnir's hammer.
No, you were talking about the men.
Or abs going to make you happy. Is the journeys should make you happy.
The journey.
Figure out about yourself.
Right.
Who's that who and the what now?
What a buzzkill. Like, I just totally, lost my whole... Oh, boo. Lost it. It's gone.
Well, and
I've been pretty good about...
But I have a question, though, based, the people who tell Taya about how she looks, and you said that's... The more she hears that's damaging. Has she said that, or do you just think that's not good for her?
No, we haven't talked about it probably because I don't want to implant that idea in her head. It's just that, and it's a lovely idea, right? That people see a picture and they're like, oh, you look so beautiful in that picture. Like, again, it's coming from this lovely place, except for the guys that probably DM her privately and say whatever.
Yeah, she's if you had to pick a young girl who checks all the boxes, she does that.
Gotcha.
I've known her for a few years, and because I'm essentially the same age as her father, I look at her as she's a child.
She's a child.
Right. But I really love her personality, and
yes.
I love how attitudey she is, but in a good way, not like a go fuck yourself way. But she has no problem telling you that.
Right. She's smart. She's assertive. She's, many of these women are. But it's like when you are known for your beauty, it's a picture, right? You took a picture, you posted a picture. What are people going to say? You look really smart in that picture, like you're beautiful. And so when you become known for that, and Taya is aware enough to know this stuff, but it still has its effect, I think. And so in the event that something were to cause people to stop saying that, I feel like it can't not have some sort of effect.
Right.
And it's just changing the culture of the first thing that you say to a person, right? Like if they've lost some weight, like if I were to lose 10 or 15 pounds, people are going to be like, oh, you look great. What? I didn't look great now? Right. And it's coming from a place of you put in the work, you lost weight. Like that's what we're supposed to do. We're all supposed to be thinner. Like you look great. And they mean it. And they mean it in a genuine way. But I'm like, there's so much more to me than that. And why does that even have to be a thing at all? So that's what worries me about Taya. I remember when we were, we had to go to court for something, actually, nothing serious. And that was years ago.
Okay.
Not recent. And there was an attorney there who literally was like 192 years old. God bless his heart.
Youre.
And he's a really well-known attorney, but like so living in like the days of Mad Men, like just not, no. And
this is going to be interesting.
Every woman that walked in, like if you were wearing a skirt, like forget it. The guy was like, and he's this old guy, and he would be like, oh, like nice legs, like straight up, like, and everybody would ignore him because he was ancient, and it was like everyone knew him, and I was like, nobody's skin is crawling with this, right? Yeah. So then we end up in a room, and he is there with me and my daughter, and he's like, man, you are stunning. Like, you are just beautiful, blah, blah, blah. And he's going on and on. I'm like, what's great? She's really fucking smart.
Did you say that?
Yes. And then he's like, oh, yeah? He's like, what, you want to be a lawyer? And she's like, no, I'm going to go into business. And he's like, you should be a lawyer. He's like, nobody will take their eyes off of you. I'm like, can we stop?
Oh, man, you
sounds
couldn't.
Like Burgess Meredith without the old man.
So I was just like, it kind of sucks that, another level of all of this, right, is that how you look is really not important, isn't the right word. It's like, it's just, it's more important than it should be in the world. And like, she's going to struggle because she's really smart, and that's not the first thing that people are going to see about her. You know what I'm saying? Like, she's going to walk into an interview, and immediately they're going to be like, all right, she checks that box.
Yeah, it's going to be a credential.
Right.
Yeah.
And, I mean, she's good. Listen, I'm sure she'd rather look the way she looks than other, but it's just something that comes up. And I'm hoping that, she learns this stuff at a younger age. It'll kind of help her through not, that's not her identity, is not that. She's like, you should see the pictures in the sweatpants, which she does post also,
I just showed the picture from from the wedding.
I know.
I'm just trying to prove my point.
No.
Gives some context to this creepy judge guy.
I know. My God.
What's your name,
Yes. That was like, literally.
What could Judge Johnson do for you today?
Let me tell you about my resume. I defended people during the Civil War. Sorry, that went off the track. That went real quick. I'm sorry.
General Custer was a client.
I met that Abraham Lincoln. His policies.
Oh my God.
Oh God.
I thought it was a real dick move. Shut up. I ruined everything. I apologize.
Mom, can we go?
I ruined everything. I'm so annoyed that I lost my point.
That's fine.
That's fine.
I'm still on that.
It led to greater things.
It did.
I guess
It really
it did.
did.
I guess it did. Yeah.
Well, before we wrap it up, only because we're coming in on 2 hours, which is amazing.
It really is.
Yeah.
Means we got to have you back.
Yeah.
Oh, anytime.
But I always defer to Cliff on the younger stuff because it's like I don't remember. I remember what I was doing when I was Cliff's age, but I also know that I've had this kind of mindset for a long time, and I never felt I had to look a particular way to be a trainer, to do what I do. I keep myself in the shape that I keep myself in just because I just do, but I don't feel like I need to. As someone who's newer in this profession, do you feel the need to be like, I have to be X amount of strong, I need to be like, I need to look like this, or do you like not give a shit?
Like it's come up with clients before.
Really?
Like not to me, but like the same way you were saying, like referencing other people in the building, like, oh, that person knows what they're talking about because they look a certain way, and it's like, well, they're kind of crazy if you actually talk to them. And,
Yes.
But I've also internalized it too. Like I recently gotten certified as a nutrition coach, and that's something I've wanted to do since college, and I minored in it, but I've had trouble like getting that off the ground and trying to like push that because I feel like I'm not at a certain body fat. I don't have abs. I don't have the things to like market that. And that's like an evidence of like my knowledge and like, but I
it's one of the. I understand what you're saying because I would be bullshitting you if I didn't say that when I'm on the floor working out in a tank top, people will say things to me a lot more recently, and I don't know why that is. So there's definitely that thing, but that's usually stems from the people asking the questions. It's their own reservations about it. But I think that for someone like you, if those thoughts don't enter into your own head because of you think you need to live up to something, then like you're already ahead of the game. Part of you succeeding at coaching these people through nutrition is going to be kind of like what I was saying earlier. When someone comes to you about, I want to lose this body fat, I want to be this weight. And again, that's fine. But then you have to start like make them feel heard with the why. Like, why do you want to do this? Right? Like, can I put you on a diet that's going to get you down 4 or 5% body fat? Sure. Are you going to love it? No. Are you going to be happier with yourself afterwards? Probably not. Are you going to learn anything? Fucking no. Right? Like, what are all the things that you can do for them as a person, not just a client, not just a results driven thing? And then they'll start to see maybe more the value of, because you have your own things happening in your life. So maybe being 12% body fat as opposed to like 15 or whatever, that's just not important because I got other shit I want to do, And I think that people come to us thinking like this is all we do. And for some of us, it is all we do. But doesn't mean that you're like living that thing every single day, like living and breathing it. And it's the only thing that's going to manifest itself for you. Like I've been impressed by the amount of video stuff you can do and some of your other skill set. And it's like, yeah, Cliff is just not this, but I've taken the time to pay attention to the stuff that I've seen you do. And I think the more people can see you trying to get people results outside of just the results, I think that'll speak more to the type of coach that you can be. And I think the kind of coach you want to be.
Yeah. Because I'm around Cliff a good amount.
Yeah.
He's like a human Swiss Army knife.
Mm-hmm.
Like the dude just figures shit out and fixes it. It's really, really impressive.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter what it is. Like he finds a way to get it done, and it's really impressive. I'm not gonna lie.
So yeah, I mean, listen, if I thought you weren't worth fucking sitting down at the table right now for the last 2 hours, I would be like, yeah, you can just stand over there and you know,
Sit in the corner and eat your carrots like
Yeah.
last time.
yeah. But you know, and Lauren will tell you, I don't take kindly to new folks all the time. I don't.
I
Really?
don't take kindly to your stand.
Yeah. No, but it's like, you know, I've been doing this for so long.
Put Dave in the closet.
It's gonna bite you.
Been doing it for so long. It's like I was told I've like at least seen Mike previously, but because I knew he was coming through John, I'm like, well, I know I'm probably going to get along with this guy. And after the first meeting, I was like, yeah, this is going to be fine. Well, I could say it for
No, I'm just laughing because it is true. It's like, simmer down, cowboy. Like, just relax. I need you to just relax.
You're at about a 10 right now. I need you like at a 5. I'm just trying to pay Cliff a compliment here.
Yes. You should take it probably.
But anyway, that's kind of, you know, figure out how you want to coach people the way you want to do it and not worry about how people are going to perceive you because of how you lift, how you look, like whatever, right? It's going to take time. You know, it's not an overnight thing, and especially being newer and being in a place that hasn't really been open that long or whatever. But the more you stick to like your values as you figure them out as a nutrition person, as a coach, as a trainer, that's going to start to trickle down.
We can do a values assessment.
Yeah, I mean, you
He'll
could.
know exactly what his values are.
Yeah.
We'll be here till midnight.
Yeah.
That's my thing. We'll have to do that
We just
live
keep
on
this
the air.
rolling.
But the more you just think like I'm capable of helping anybody, even if I was in a wheelchair, right? Then you can.
Right, yeah.
Sound advice.
Uncle Dave. Who the fuck shot Uncle Dave?
No.
Beverly Hills Cop 3.
Oh, I don't know if I made it to
Well, it's a terrible movie. So
Judge Reinhold and Eddie
Probably
Murphy.
why.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Judge Reinhold. What the hell happened to him?
I don't know, but Hector Elizondo was in that movie too.
Oh, really?
He was the
guy's
one who
still
said
around.
who the fuck shot Uncle Dave?
He's still around. He's in other movies.
Yeah.
Too. Yeah,
Standing.
Judge Reinhold. I don't know.
Oh my god, yeah. Fucking Tim Allen. Anybody have any other closing thoughts before we say goodnight? Wow, it's really
No, it's
quiet.
been pretty awesome.
All right.
I think
A lot of information thrown around, so yeah, I think we're all just processing and thinking about a creepy old judge during the Civil War.
Well, this is great.
Yeah, I think we covered a lot, but yeah, there may need to be a round 2 with you guys. This was super fun.
Well, we appreciate you coming on, Lauren. Thank you so much. And
My pleasure.
everyone, say goodnight.
Good night.
Everybody.